Are you new to the Wake County school system and a little bit overwhelmed by all the things there are to know? What are magnet schools? What are year-round schools? What are traditional schools? What's your base school? What's your overflow school? All of these things can feel very overwhelming. That's why it's extremely helpful to know someone like Libby Taylor. She is a school selection consultant with her own company called School Up Wake. And if you did not see my last video on magnet schools, we talked in depth about School Up Wake and what drove her to start the company. Today we are talking specifically about capped schools. So come on in, let's talk to Libby Taylor and get you up to speed on what it means if your school is capped. Here we go. I'm here today with Libby Taylor. She is here to talk to me about capped schools. Let's start out with a very simple question.
Okay.
What does it mean if a school is capped?
There are no simple questions. So this is new to a lot of people because I think most areas of North Carolina and other areas of the country don't do this. But the idea is, as our schools are growing, and they're growing as fast as you can possibly imagine, instead of massive redistricting in order to move people around, the school board will very intentionally cap a school and put that burden onto new families moving in. So what it means is if you move into a school that is capped, they cannot guarantee your child a seat at that school. They may or may not be assigned to an overflow school that has more availability. So that's the logistics. It means it's overcrowded. They cannot guarantee you a seat.
Okay, and I want to talk about something you just talked about.
Okay.
So somebody goes on the website, they see a school is capped.
Yes.
Should they, I think what you're saying is they don't need to automatically assume that their child won't
right.
be able to go to that school.
That's right. So what that terminology really means is they cannot guarantee you a seat there. We should also mention, it doesn't say, like if you just go to a school's website, it doesn't say our school is capped. So what you would want to do is when you find a house, when you put the address in the address lookup tool, it will say in red, this base school is capped. Most of them are elementary schools. There are a few middle and a few high schools that are capped, but most are elementary schools. So you would see that on the address lookup tool, and that is the time in which you will want to call the school and say, hey, we have a third grader and a fifth grader. What does enrollment look like for your third and fifth grade? And they have, I believe it's called a registrar at the school level who can answer that question for you. So it's not a guarantee. It's worth calling and finding out, especially in this market. I wouldn't want to pass up a house because I thought there might not be a spot. So I would call the school and find out if they have availability.
And even if the school is capped, they have to register at that school, right?
Yes, that is still your base school.
Okay.
You still register there, and then student assignment would let you know what your overflow school is.
Okay, and so we were talking a little earlier about overflow schools, and and there's also some confusion about, well, does it become capped during the year and in and out of being capped? So can you explain how it's determined what school is capped and when and how long that lasts for?
Sure. So student assignment makes recommendations to the board. Those are done on a yearly basis. So it's not multiple times during the year. It's not kind of at random. So the last couple years, it's been around February, March, and they will cap certain schools for the following academic year. So that is happening on a yearly basis. You're not going to find out in September or October that they have newly capped a school. You would know ahead of that academic year, and those caps go through that academic year.
Okay, that is good to know for people moving to the area. How do you know what overflow school you're assigned to? I think you just said you call. And
you can call the school and find out. That's the easiest way to do it. In some cases, there are two overflow schools. So depending on your address, you would go to one or the other. And in the majority of cases, there's one overflow school. So the school level can tell you that. Typically, whoever answers the phone can tell you that. They all know what those overflow schools are.
Okay, so say I'm a mom, my kid is put in an overflow school, but I know that spots are going to open up in that base school. Okay. Are we stuck with this overflow school for the whole year?
So you have some opportunity there. Okay. They do what they actually call our callbacks. I love that term. So I think they have two different times in which they do them, which would be the beginning of the year. Maybe it's actually three. The middle of the year, they do often do callbacks in the middle of the year, and then the end of that first year. So you can make a choice at that point to go back to your base or your original base or to stay at your overflow school. Typically, you don't get transportation if you stay at your overflow school. So it does kind of depend. You'll have all that information in order to make that choice. But there are callbacks.
I want to talk about transportation. Let's remember that. But I also wanted to say, so for example, and you may not know the answer to this, but my child's at an overflow school. They're doing well this year. We've gotten a call back.
Okay.
But I would prefer they stay there through the end of the year and then come back to their regular school. Is it like
when you get a call back? Yep. I don't want to say in all cases that happens, but yeah, typically if you choose to stay, you stay.
I think it's safe to say on any of these topics, nothing is
guaranteed. Nothing is always.
Okay, so let's talk about transportation since you just mentioned that.
Yep.
So if you have to go to an overflow school, are you provided transportation?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Always?
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that in most cases.
Okay, so
I'm pretty sure in all cases.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure in all cases, if you're sent to an overflow, you do have transportation.
Busing's been tough this year anyway. But
yeah, if we have bus drivers, you'll get transportation. Should I say it that way? If we have bus drivers, you'll get transportation.
Generally, you are supposed to get transportation at your overflow school.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I just thought of one thing we skipped over. When we were talking about whether or not they will cap a school in the middle of the year, this would be a good time to point out if your elementary school is capped and let's say you move here with a third grader.
Okay.
Let's say your middle school is also capped. Well, that doesn't apply to you anymore because by the time you get to middle school, you are now local because you've been here in the system.
Okay.
So I have a lot of confusion with parents around that. There are some areas where the elementary and the middle is capped.
Okay.
If you're looking at Apex Friendship, they're all capped. So everything's capped there. So much growth there. So in those cases, I'll hold that one as an example because they are way overcrowded. But in most cases, if you are in elementary school but your middle school is capped, that cap is not applying to you because it would apply to new people moving here, not current residents.
So once your elementary school kid
once you're in the system, you're in the system.
They can go into the middle school they're assigned to.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Unless it's Apex Friendship.
Okay.
That's the
Nothing
only
is
one.
Always. Well, that's
Nothing is
never always.
That's the only one. Apex Friendship is the only one that has pretty severe overcrowding. So that's an issue right now.
Everybody wants to be an Apex.
Because it's beautiful and it's growing and these are great problems to have. Growth in a city is a great thing.
Do you know, I don't know if this can be answered, but in what order kids are selected to return to schools?
So it's my understanding that it is actually a wait list in order from when you enroll. Okay. So the time in which you enroll matters a little bit.
So there's a benefit to getting enrolled right away if you know that school's capped, that you might be earlier on the list.
Yes, and so they do have a June 30th deadline. So I usually recommend to people, hey, if you can purchase a house in May or early June and you're ahead of that deadline, your chances are much better.
Okay, a deadline for registering?
Sort of.
Okay.
Sort of.
But if you move in, you can obviously
register. So like if you moved into a capped school after June 30th, there's little to no chance you'll get a seat in that school.
In the regular school. Okay.
If you're before June 30th and you're ahead of those timelines, if you were even in May, which is a lot earlier, then you would have a pretty good chance getting in some of those. Depends on the school, depends on the grade level.
Okay, gotcha. So some of these people who are waiting till late in the summer to move would maybe be better suited to move earlier.
You would be better suited to move earlier, but
got it.
Still no guarantee.
Okay, so let's see. I think we talked about if you're in. Here's one. If you're already living in an area, and I think I know the answer, but you're already going to your base school. Okay. The school gets capped. Do you have any risk of being sent to the overflow school?
No. Once you're in, that cap doesn't apply to you. Okay. So those types of moves would happen if a new school opened up or redistricting happened. Okay. But Wake County is very good about keeping people in the school they're in and allowing them to stay there before they're sent to another school.
Okay. Well, that's really all the questions that I had. Yeah. Is there anything that you feel like I missed that people ask you about?
I don't think so. I think we hit the big ones. Capped schools are listed on the Wake County website, so you can get the list. If you just Google capped schools, you can get the list. Again, they'll tell you in the address lookup tool when you find a house whether or not your base school is capped. Okay. And you don't need to worry about the advanced grade levels because once you're in the system, you're considered local. So take that worry off the plate.
That's a great information.
And then just call the school and find out what their overflow school is so you can look it up. It's typically the same calendar. I'll mention that as well. So if you're at a year-round school, if it's capped, they'll send you to a year-round overflow. If you're at a traditional, they'll send you to a traditional.
Okay, good to know.
In most cases, it works that way.
Nothing's always.
Yeah, so those are the big pieces, and don't be super afraid of your overflow. In a lot of cases, it's a nearby school that has the similar teachers, similar resources, and is a very comparable.
I know Apex Friendship is overflowing to Apex High School.
To Apex High School,
Yeah,
both are great.
Which is where my kids go, and we love it. All right, well, thank you so much. And if anyone wants to reach out to Libby directly, she can be reached at
Libby at schoolupwake.com.
There you go. She's a great help and a great resource. I can say words. Resource, so user. I hope you found that information helpful. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to Libby. If you have any questions about real estate, reach out to me, RaleighRealtyMom@gmail.com, and I will catch you next time. Bye-bye.